United States remains the epicenter of the pandemic with over 600,000 cases and more than 28,000 deaths. Many developing countries have recorded fewer cases compared to developed economies. Many analysts fear that the weak capacity of healthcare systems in developing and underdeveloped countries is likely to worsen the pandemic and its impact on their economies. The United Nations Trade and Development Agency put the cost of the outbreak at about $2 trillion in 2020. Most central banks, finance ministries, and independent economic experts around the world have taken solace in the prediction that the impacts might be sharp but short-lived. Economic activities would return to normal thereafter. This line of thought mirrors the thinking of the events that shaped the 2007 global financial crisis. When compared to COVID-19, the 2007 crisis could be described as minor and manageable. The tumultuous events that COVID-19 had spread across the globe cuts across every facet of human existence, and the consequences may linger beyond the second half of 2020. The slowdown in the global economy and lockdown in some countries such as Italy, Spain, and most Eurozone economies and beyond as a result of COVID-19 has also taken its toll on the global demand for oil. For most developing economies, the odds of sliding into a downturn are gradually expected as the global coronavirus outbreak puts severe pressure on the economy. Now, for Nigeria, the country is still sluggish in grappling with recovery from the 2016 economic recession, which was a fallout of the global oil price crash and insufficient foreign exchange earnings to meet imports. The spirit of economic recovery and growth sustainability, the Nigerian federal budget for the 2020 fiscal year was prepared with significant revenue expectations, but with contestable realizations. The approved budget had projected revenue collections at 8.24 trillion naira, an increase of about 20% from 2019 figure. The emergence of COVID-19 and its increasing incidence in Nigeria has led to drastic review and changes in the earlier revenue expectations and fiscal projections. Let's talk more on this. I have the Director General of Franco Nigeria Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Moses Umoru. He joins me now via Skype from Okota here in Lagos. Mr. Umoru, it's great to have you join us on the show.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's great to connect with you all the way from here.
Let's start with the lockdown. How's it looking like in your area?
Well, of course, like the government has actually rightly said, everybody should stay at home, and here everybody's indoors. No economic activity, less people on the streets, and all of that. So that is the situation we have here, and that is our reality here. So that's it. So I think within our area here, there is proper compliance as far as the lockdown is concerned.
A good one is good to know. Let's now look at the impact of this extension on businesses. Before we start talking about Nigeria, France, I know you talk about what's even happening in France, but let's look at it basically, generally, the effects of this in business. We see estimates, we see figures coming out, talking about what the effect this has actually cost on all sectors of the Nigerian economy.
Yes, of course. As expected, the COVID-19, which is described as a global pandemic, is, of course, hampers on businesses, first of all. Most businesses are shut down, and there is no economic activity. And of course, when there is no economic activity, there is no revenue. But the problem is that Nigeria here is a particular case, because if you look at the International Labour Organization research in 2018, it discovered that emerging countries have 89% of employment in the informal sector. When you have that kind of situation in Nigeria here, you discover that most shops and small businesses now, SMEs, are shut down, which is a lot of problem, because most of the employers, or employees rather, of these organizations tend to receive payment per day. So automatically there is already a lot of people that are out of job currently. And look at the 11% or 12% in the formal sector. aside the communication sector, other sectors are shut down, which speaks of after the COVID-19, many people will have no jobs to go back to, which of course affects the economy, directly and also indirectly. And for an approach in terms of for a very, very, see, there is, when it comes to economic approach towards dealing with the COVID-19, there is no one size fits all here. Now, for Nigeria, for example, we have the problem of database. The question now is there is now the government do not have the data of every citizen in the country, of every business in the country, because of course the vast number of employees are in the informal sector, and this sector is not captured in any data. So what do we do in this situation here? I was talking about using the M-Pesa model to be able to handle such things. First of all, to be able to deal with this, sorry, I'm going a bit far. To be able to deal with this, there has to be a system of quantitative easing. Quantitative easing means that the government has to put funds into the economy. Now, not funds in the reserve of the government, no. Because, of course, most of our funds are depleted. Our foreign reserve is already dwindling and the rest of them. The government has to mint currency and then put into the system. But the problem is that how can you effectively get that done when you don't have the data of citizens? That is where we are having a big problem. So the system used in France, used in the US, for example, cannot be adopted here. Of course, now we need to begin to talk to the local governments immediately. Of course, local governments are closer to the people. Let the local government meet the people and tell them, okay, the government has something for you, but you need to be captured, just a little form, your name and then your phone number. Of course, we begin to build data. So why this is a problem for us, it creates an opportunity for us to ensure that we capture a lot of people. Look at financial inclusion for Nigeria, for example. 35% financial inclusion for Nigeria. What this means in real terms is that out of every 100 Nigerians, only 35 of them have bank accounts. So the issue of usage of BVN to even for unconditional cash transfers and the rest of them might not necessarily work. So there has to be both the automated system and the manual system. See, there is no other way we can deal with this except we boost the economy. 2 months from now, we believe COVID-19 will go away. Of course, definitely, it's temporal. But will people get jobs after COVID-19? Industries have to begin to reboot once again. What happens to a lot of people that have jobs? Manufacturing sector, for example, they have to open their shop once again. They begin to manufacture. Within that, there has to be a gestation period for them to get back into business. And then they will create what we call seasonal unemployment. Within that period, there has to be unconditional cash transfers to citizens, even through businesses, to ensure that businesses are not laying off and all of that. Well, we can handle this if we approach it correctly. But of course, as I now, it is a very, very catastrophic situation for the economy of Nigeria.
Mr. Moses, the United Nations Trade Development Agency puts the cost at about $2 trillion, which many are saying this could even be more if we look at it. Now, you're the Director General of Nigeria, France, a Chamber of Commerce, and a lot of international businesses. What are your members? What are they saying? What are the feelers you're getting from them? What's happening? There's an extension of the lockdown in France as we speak. Tell us how this comes to people around you.
Yeah, for businesses, it's the same thing globally. Businesses are shut down. There is no production, but the beauty about international businesses as compared to the local businesses here in Nigeria is that there is confidence from government, that the government is going to come to their rescue. And that's the difference. If you look at President Emmanuel Macron announced the same day that His Excellency, the President of Nigeria, announced that it's going to be an extension for extra 14 days. President Macron announced that it's going to be extended to the 11th of May, but assured that businesses would have cash transfers to ensure that when the COVID-19 is over, there is no laying off of staff. Of course, for those that get wage per day currently, it's going to affect them, but that is just a little proportion. If you look at, now begin to talk about the informal sector, the volume of the informal sector and the formal sector. So we cannot begin to compare ourselves to the EU countries already because the volume of the formal sector, because, for example, they capture their informal sector. What we have been advocating for is that the informal sector should be captured in the scheme of things. The local government, if you look at even our 77 local government, they give informal taxes to the informal sector. They would have also captured them in terms of data So now that government needs to come in to help these people, there has to be a way to ensure that everybody gets the necessary help they need. In the EU countries, of course, brands like Total and the rest of them, of course, operation is shut down now, even though the oil market is still going on. But still, there is assurance that, of course, there is reserve from the government, and then things can also go on. So we expect a lot of economics after the COVID-19. And one thing I must really mention is that while a lot of analysts have been talking about the catastrophic effect of the COVID-19, one thing we have not mentioned is that economic activities will automatically come back to where it is if there is a vaccine for the coronavirus. That is an aspect we have not actually really looked at. So we, as we begin to prepare for the catastrophic effect of this, we must understand that once there is a vaccine, it automatically shoots the economy back to normal, and things will almost go back again right immediately.
Sounding very good, because I was already thinking of trade relations, looking at deals that have been signed before now, agreements, contracts that have been reached, the negative impact this will have on all economies, not just Nigeria. I was thinking about that.
Yeah, the beauty about it is that it is a global pandemic. So who signs the deal and who is expecting the deal to understand is feeling the effect of this. So it's not a case of, okay, a country has misbehaved because there's one virus in your country and it's not in my country. So it's a global issue. And everyone understands risk analysis will have to factor that. Of course, we know that at the beginning of the year, even when IMF, the World Bank came up with their predictions, force majeure was factored in, but nobody expected that this global pandemic would have the effect to this level, right? So that's the way we see it right now. And of course, it has to be factored into deals and the rest of it. Everybody understands that, and we'll find a way around it, one way or the other.
DG, before I let you go, let's talk about palliatives now. You were talking about proper data to help address this. As it is now, Nigeria, we have to work with what we have. We know of BVN, we know of some moves being made by some states like Lagos to register residents and, have a particular number or your address that you could be reached at any time. Now, what do you think, or how well do you see all of this playing out? Because we have to manage with what we have at the moment.
Yes, of course. I personally believe that there has to be, for Nigeria, it cannot be a single approach towards achieving this. It has to be a hybrid approach. So while we're using the BVN, like I heard from the Ministry of Finance, and then looking at those through SMSs and all of that, we also need to use the local government to be able to reach out to the people one-on-one. And like I said before, why this is a problem, this creates a very, very big, we need to leverage on the opportunity, because when you tell Nigerians that the government is going to give you money, and for the government to give you money, the government needs your information. You discover that a lot of people will give out their information. So it's an opportunity for us to build the database that we do not have in this country. So let the local government, it should be deployed to local government to go to houses and do you have a bank account? No, the government must pay this money into your bank account. And for you to be able to get this transfer, like the M-Pesa model in Kenya, you do not even need to walk into the bank, just send it. With your little phone, you can just get the information out there, your name, your surname, your address, and all of that, and that is done. So we need to use the opportunity to build the database we have, even going forward. So when we have a situation like this, there can be free flow system so that we don't have so much effect in terms of our citizenry.
Mr. Moses Umoru, I must thank you for your time. It's really nice talking to you. Mr. Umoru is the Director General of the Franco-Nigeria Chamber of Commerce, in charge of businesses with regards to Nigeria and France business relations. Let's move on. Economic experts want more financial institutions involved in the disbursement of the Central Bank of Nigeria's coronavirus loan intervention. They also ask that the authorities give priority to the urban poor in the disbursement of cash and food palliatives. Lara Folayo takes it from here.
The central bank announced palliatives in support of the economy as COVID-19 pushed oil prices to an all-time low. One of which was that MSMEs and households affected by the pandemic will be getting some credit assistance. Complaints about requests for payments before accessing the loans have now been addressed by the CBN and the funds administrating Microfinance Bank. Experts now want more financial institutions involved in the fund's disbursement for better access by beneficiaries as the impact of the times bite harder.
If you look at the conditions, the collateral is a requirement. But when you say, when you remove that aspect and maybe require them to bring guarantors and then require them to show evidence that they can pay, I think that should suffice for now. Another thing I would also like to see, to facilitate access, is for more financial institutions to be involved.
Thousands of other countries are doing. We should also do the same and not task Nigerians. Rather, we should look for ways of assisting Nigerians, like the conditional cash transfer that I hear about. We should increase the numbers because there will be more Nigerians not trading, more Nigerians not involved in any economic activity.
Security agencies are presently battling to contain rising crime in Lagos. Hoodlums are hiding under the cover of lockdown-induced hunger to rob the public.
There is still rice.
Amateur videos have also emerged showing food items being forcefully taken from moving trucks in Abuja. The authorities are now advised to focus on ensuring palliatives get to the urban poor, as the lockdown's impact is being felt more in urban areas with strict enforcement.
This lockdown is hitting people in the cities, more than people in the rural areas. Because if you go to rural areas, our local government areas, a number of economic activities, is still going on there, and that's because the markets are still on. Okay, but it is more in the cities. And that is why the people in the urban areas, the urban poor, should be paid attention.
We have a population of almost 200 million. All this was collected using data. So we should be able, just like NEPA is able to locate any house in Nigeria and give them their bill, we should be able to locate Nigeria. This is not rocket science. Nigerians are in Nigeria. They are not in space. So we should be able to locate them wherever they are.
The CBN introduced the 50 billion naira integrated credit facility for MSMEs and households affected by COVID-19 through the Nesal Microfinance Bank as part of efforts to cushion effects of the pandemic on the Nigerian economy. Lara Folayo, TVC News, Abuja.
Asia's economic growth this year will ground to a halt for the first time in 60 years as the coronavirus crisis takes an unprecedented toll on the region's services sector and major export destinations. That's the latest projection by the International Monetary Fund. According to Chang Yong-ri, the director of IMF's Asia and Pacific Department, policymakers must offer targeted support to households and firms hardest hit by travel bans, social distancing policies, and other measures aimed at containing the pandemic. The IMF expects a 7.6% expansion in Asian economic growth next year on the assumption that containment policies succeed, but added that outlook was highly uncertain. For China, the economy is also expected to grow by 1.2% this year, down from 6% growth in the IMF's January forecast. The world's second largest economy is expected to see a rebound in activities later this year, with growth to bounce back to 9.2% next year. World stocks market fell today while bonds and dollar held on to hefty gains after a coronavirus-driven plunge in U.S. retail sales and factory productions and increasing gloomy economic outlooks for Asia. MSCI's broadest index of Asia-Pacific shares outside Japan fell 0.6%. The Nikkei fell 1.3%. E-mini futures for the S&P 500 were 0.3% lower, following a 2.2% drop on Wall Street overnight. Benchmark indexes in Australia, Korea, Hong Kong, and Shanghai also posted falls between 0.3% and 1.5%. The dollar rose against major currencies, and the yield on benchmark 10 years U.S. Treasuries held at 0.63%, near the week low hit on Wednesday. It's good to tell you that the all-share index of the market for today is on the positive side, 0.07%. Top advancers Nestle, MTN Nigeria, Dangote Cement, Nigerian Breweries, and Cornell. Decliners, we have Zenith Bank, Guarantee Trust Bank, Stanbic IBTC, Boa Cement, and WAPCO. Oil insurance sector 1.19% up, oil and gas 0.25% up, banking 6.25% down, consumer goods 5.69% up. Crude oil prices on the international market today in early trading edged up following sharp losses in the previous session on hopes that a big build-up in U.S. inventories may mean producers have little option but to dip in output quotes as coronavirus pandemic ravages demand. At the London market, Brent crude sells for $27.88 a barrel, recording an increase in price of 0.69%. For the OPEC basket, crude oil dealers offer $14.50 a barrel, recording a sharp decline of 26.40%. That's our show. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you tomorrow, same time.